Hello and welcome to the walk-off, everybody. It is a Monday morning mailbag on a Tuesday afternoon, done on a Wednesday in true walk-off fashion. I'm Scott Belford, joined as always by the best co-host in the biz, currently sitting in my buddy's basement in Calgary. Adam and I actually hit the road together tomorrow. Regina bound, baby. So for all the
Sir.
Saskatchewan listeners out there, I know that we have a few of you. We're going to be at Regina Brewing tomorrow. You can get your tickets online or at the door at the brewery. Show starts at 8. I will post our show's ticket links in the comment section here. So it's going to be under the Craft Island website, and that's where all of our tickets will be. So it's nice and easy. So I'll list them
Mhm.
off here. Regina tomorrow, Rushi Masala, an Indian restaurant in Moose Jaw. That's right. We'll play anywhere, baby. And I'm actually really excited about that one. I got a bunch of family in Moose Jaw. So, again, same thing. Get your tickets at the door or online at that ticket link I'm going to post here. Stumbletown Distillery in Saskatoon on Saturday. And then I've got a show in Calgary on Thursday. Then Adam joins me again for Lethbridge at Good Times. And then on the 23rd, we are at Sick Brewing in Edmonton. And that one is going to be a fun one. So looking forward to being on the road with you again, buddy. It's been a little while, but the band is back together. Look at
There
that.
we go. Is it nan bread or non bread?
Ooh. See, I'm a Nan man,
Yeah.
but I mispronounce every baseball player's name out
Well,
there.
this is what I'm
And
getting at, right? Is like people that rag
no,
on us
trust
for
me.
mispronouncing a pitcher on the Yankees. It's like I don't even know how to pronounce the menu items at my favorite
Yeah,
restaurants.
yeah.
Man.
Which is why Indian restaurants always have numbers, right? It's like, I'll have the number 27, please. And they're like, that's for white people who can't say these words. And
Yes,
it's
exactly.
appreciated. I like
Exactly.
that.
It is. It is
Yeah.
appreciated.
All right. We do mailbag every single Tuesday, except when we do it on a Wednesday. And you can always get a hold of us by reaching out online. Twitter works well at Walk Off Podcast, Blue Sky, the Walk Off Podcast, Instagram, the Walk Off Podcast, or you can join the Patreon, help support the channel. You get instant access to all of our interviews. You get an extra show a week, MLB Mondays every single Monday, and then you automatically get your questions and comments into the mailbag. We have quite a few from Patreon to get to, so we'll dive right in here. Starting with Art Vandalay, of course, Art from Vandalay
Latex.
Industries. Yes,
Latex
latex.
salesman.
He goes, very entertaining show, Scott. Well done. I could have done without the woman commenting out loud on every point made, but great show. This is talking about Baseball Town, which is online right now. You can check that out on the channel, both audio and YouTube. It was a great show. Also, when things are live and interactive, sometimes people are more
It's
interactive. It's just kind of the nature of the beast, if you will. But glad all of you enjoyed it. I know that right now people are joking. They're like, "Oh, you put the Spanish and the English side up, and they're all English." So this is what happened. This is why there's two up on YouTube right now. Is that I started to load the one and it took forever. It was the higher quality video. And after like a day of trying to get it to load, I was just like, screw it. I'm lowering the quality of the video and
mhm.
just getting it up. And then a day later, the good video just popped up too. And I didn't notice for a few days. So, anyways,
Uh,
this is why we are known as the tech gurus we are amongst the Toronto Blue Jays podcast community. It's things like
Indeed.
that. Exactly.
Indeed.
But glad you enjoyed it, Art. Appreciate that. Ian Elliott had a funny little quip here. He's like, the visual of Scott, Keegs, and BNS looks like the three bears. We got Papa, Mama, and Baby Bear up there, which
Nice.
honestly, so what a great compliment for me to be
Hmm.
Papa Bear. Like it meant the world, you know? Unless he's going in descending, order, in which case I'm Baby Bear, and I'm also fine with that, you know?
But you are not Mama Bear.
I am not Mama Bear. No. All right. let's get into some Toronto Blue Jays talk here. This is from Jeffrey M, Patreon member. Jeffrey, thank you for the $4 a month. It is truly
Thank you.
appreciated. He says, so just looking at the stats so far, has Miles Straw possibly played himself onto the 40-man roster? Another week like this, and I say so. So then the long-term question for the season, based on things right now, Straw or Rodin as the fourth outfielder. Lastly, the hitters that need to be hitting are hitting. I'm telling you right now, grounds crew, if Scherzer is healthy, I think we have more than enough hitting to balance out a regression of any of the starters. Kirk is even impressing. How are we feeling so far? I'm with Jeffrey, man. I mean, not to beat the drum too loudly, but the Blue Jays are currently first place in the Grapefruit League. They are going for that golden grapefruit, baby. Forget about regular season. We're going to win the preseason. And this is
So
very
Miles Straw, stat line this spring: 21 at bats, 10 hits, 1 home run, a 476 batting average, and an OPS of 1.145.
well, that'll do. Pencil him in.
I mean, what's not to like?
Listen, this kind of goes back to your favorite.
And he's doing it in Vladdy's walk year of all years, which is going to help Vlad.
Exactly. So to quote you, Mr. Adam Mack, you know what? Sample size means nothing, but a good small sample size better than a bad small sample size. And Miles Straw kind of doing what he has to do to get a sniff at this big league roster. And Miles Straw does. There's a reason that the Guardians signed him to the money they did. And obviously, a lot of that has to do with a small market franchise taking a bigger risk on a guy that a lot of teams probably would have waited a little longer on. But he does have a lot of really strong qualities, including his glove. And if he can put the ball in play and drop these singles in like he's doing, that's another one. Also very good on the base path. Miles Straw as the fourth outfielder here feels like it would be a decision we could all get behind if he can find ways to contribute. No one expects Miles Straw to hit 500 for the season. No one's going to do that. But if Miles Straw can keep his head above the Mendoza line and continue to contribute in the ways that he does well, like defense, like base running, I think that there is maybe a spot for him on this roster, at least on the 40-man, with the ability to kind of yo-yo him up and down. There's a few reasons besides the Varsho injury as to why I think this works well. Listen, I know Varsho's ahead of schedule with his injury, Adam, but you never know what's going to happen. George Springer's 35 years old. Alan Rodin has yet to play a Major League Baseball game in the regular season. So, yes, Rodin is another guy who is absolutely impressing right now in spring training. Is he a guy you want to pencil in? Or is he a guy you want to maybe continue to let stay hot at AAA for the beginning of the season? Maybe you do give Miles Straw an opportunity, and then when that fails, you have that fail-safe of bringing up Rodin and allowing him some real at-bats, right? Like, the thing with bringing up a kid like Rodin when you're kind of putting him on the bench a lot is the development stagnates.
Mm-hmm.
Who gives a shit if Miles Straw is developing or not? He's 30 years old or 29, whatever he is. We know what Miles Straw is for the most part. And so if you need a guy to just fill in for injuries, you need a guy to sit on the bench and be that fourth outfielder, come out and be a defensive sub in the seventh inning or however John Schneider decides to operate this bench. I think I prefer Straw over Rodin in that scenario. Now, let's give another scenario. Adam, let's say Springer pulls a hammy. Now, all of a sudden, Miles Straw is not the guy that I want taking every day at bats. He's not the guy I want in right field. At that point, yes, please, let's give Alan Rodin some playing time. Let's give him a little bit of rope and see what he does with it. And who knows, maybe all of this talk is for naught. Maybe Rodin is going to make this team over Straw anyways. It really does depend on where this Blue Jays brass has their eyes, right? I mean, we talked about on Baseball Town right there with Roden. I was able to ask him about what it was like to be singled out by his general manager. And this is something Ross Atkins doesn't do.
Mm-hmm.
Most general managers don't. If you ask about a prospect, they're going to rattle off 10, or they're going to say, you know what, you never want to put that sort of pressure on guys. There's a few of them that we really like.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously,
They know who they are, blah, blah, blah.
yes, yes. So maybe that just means Roden has the inside track on this, but who knows? I mean, there's some really interesting things going on in spring right now, which we'll obviously dive more into. I do agree with Jeffrey that I think that if the hitting continues to look as it has, again, I know it's spring training, it's early, all of that stuff, but my goodness, this Blue Jays team is a top 3 to 5 team in the American League on offense all spring long. They've been regularly scoring 5+ runs a game. That is that number, the magic number that is going to make sure that you win more than you lose as long as your pitching can keep it together. There's reasons to be optimistic. And I'm with him, man. Max Scherzer being healthy could be a huge boon. Now, all that said, I don't know if you saw this, Adam, but he was actually shut down here for this last start. He's being bumped to start because he's got soreness in his thumb. They say it's precautionary. Whenever you hear stuff about precautionary measures with a 40-year-old, everyone starts pulling at their collar. But the dream is this is just a slight bump in the road. He's right back in the rotation and everything's fine. Alejandro Kirk, what are your thoughts on this guy, Adam? Because he has been as hot as they come. He's hitting. So his 3 best exit velos of the spring beat any of his exit velos from 2024. I know it's a small sample size, but that's fairly impressive. Are you almost at a point where Alejandro Kirk, and I know we talked about how deep catching was 2 years, 3 years ago, and there were some big choices, and Alejandro seemed like the odd man out to us. But now that he's our last guy standing, 26 years old, he's been with this team for 5 years. Are you looking at an Alejandro Kirk extension sometime in the future? Maybe next off season?
I don't know. This would be a big year for that. I mean, can he be a majority time catcher, right? Can he be back there for
100 plus
120
games.
games?
Yeah.
You know, like if he can do it and the production offensively doesn't slip, right? He's not fatigued from getting in the squat that often. Then like, yeah, for sure. I mean, it remains to be seen. I I am a Kirk critic, but also like credit where credit's due. When Jansen departed and Kirk was the guy, like he did better than I expected him to. So
He truly did. He truly
I'm
did. And you know
optimistic
what?
on Kirk, but
And you know what? Being at spring training and seeing him up close, I will say this: he looks the best I've ever seen him. And I don't mean that in a baseball sense. I just mean physically. The guy seems like he's really, you know how it is when you're a freaking kid, right? Like you're
mhm.
growing into your body, things are changing. You're just like, I don't know, like he was carrying so much weight and it didn't really matter because he was young. And, I think it did affect him at certain points throughout his tenure with the Blue Jays. And I know fans are always quick to get on a guy for his weight, but he really looks like he's kind of figured out his body and what works for him this year. And that is
Mhm.
such a major stumbling block in a lot of players' development. So I don't know if he holds. I'm with you. If he holds together over this season for 100+ games, and you don't see a big dip in his production, I mean, we got to extend someone.
Yeah.
And catching
Well,
is a very important position. And you know what? Getting a guy at 26 years old who has 5 years of experience, if you believe in his body, and who knows if they do or not, and I think you're right, and this year is going to be very telling. I'm all for it. Let's see what we can do. And I mean, I think that Kirky would lock up for 4 years hitting the open market again at 29-30.
Yeah, I mean, Kirky is a really good catcher, not great. Like, I think part of my,
Would you say he's a top 10 catcher in the league right now?
yeah, but I'd say that there like isn't, I don't know. Top 10 feels like a more complimentary term than I think it actually is for catchers. Like if you said, "Oh, he's a top 10 shortstop," or "Oh, he's a top 10," I think you go, "Wow, that's really good." But I don't think there are that many good catchers
Offensively.
either side of the plate. But yeah,
Yeah, okay.
sure, offensively. I think of a JT Realmuto, I think of I mean the hype we had for Gabriel Moreno, right? Like
Yeah.
the enthusiasm that was there. So Kirk like does feel like a disappointing guy. I know I'm going to take flack for this, but to pencil in is like, oh, he's just going to be our everyday starting catcher for the next 5 years. It doesn't make me feel excited, but also like it is so much better than platooning. What's the magician's name?
Yeah, Heineman.
Heineman and whoever the other guy is that, it's like,
Christian Betancourt.
right. It's like, so that's what I mean. Like the idea of like not having Kirk
Mm-hmm.
is
It's a
so
scary
much,
proposition. Yeah.
yeah, it's a magnitude worse than the enthusiasm I have for keeping him. So even though
Yeah.
like I'm not like, oh yeah, we locked up Kirk. Woohoo!
Yeah.
It is going to be so much worse to be like, oh fuck, we lost Kirk too. So
Truly.
I'm
Truly.
acknowledging that. So as much as I am like a Kirk critic and like skeptical, as much as I want to be optimistic on him, I do acknowledge that like, yeah, he's probably like almost certainly a top 10 catcher in
Mm-hmm.
Major League Baseball. Um, and I think it's so much better than the alternative. I don't think we have any other like catchers in AAA or AA that either of us could name that
Yeah.
we're excited about,
No.
like, so it's kind of Kirk or bust. Like, he's no Adley Rushman, but he doesn't have to be, like he just has to
Exactly.
not be a magician. And I'm not trying to shit on Heineman too hard, but like that's what the alternative is if we don't lock up Kirk, right? Like
Yeah.
Moreno's gone, Jansen's gone. So it is kind of like, okay, we're gonna ride or die with Kirk. I don't feel great
And
about it, but I really feel bad about not having Kirk, and that's just a weird place to be.
and Kirk is not like he's 2 years removed from a silver slugger.
Mm-hmm.
He can be an offensive threat.
Mm-hmm.
And not every catcher can be an offensive threat. So even though Kirk is a top 10 catcher in the league right now, in my opinion, and even though that there is a big gap between, let's say, the top four and
Yeah.
everyone else
Right.
because of the offensive prowess of the top four catchers in the league, Kirky has been in that top four before, and he's 26. So can he get back there? I mean, this spring has been very positive, and maybe there is a way back there. And you know what? If he's the number five catcher in baseball, just slightly behind the guys who are like, the Rushmans and the Realmutos of the world, I'm all for it, man. And every guy in that catching position has ups and downs, right? Like Realmuto hasn't been an offensive juggernaut every single season. And it's just the nature of the position. It is a grind, both mentally and physically behind the plate. And it's why baseball has shifted so much towards very similar to what hockey's done with goaltending, splitting the time more evenly. Is that it is a physically demanding spot for a guy to play 140 games. It just
Mm-hmm.
doesn't happen anymore. So if Kirky can get 110 reps in and we're throwing out the Magic Man for 52 games, yeah, lock him up. because there's not a lot of guys who can do that. All right, moving on here. This message also from Patreon. This is from Brian Crawford. Mr. Crawford, hello. He goes, question for Mailbag. Which prospects have you been the most impressed with this spring? Do you want to start here, Adam? I'll name the obvious ones first, all right?
Okay.
So Alan Roden, I think we might as well just get his name out there. He's the one on the tip of everyone's tongue. He's had an incredible spring training. He's popped some dingers. He's hit doubles. He looks major league ready. He does not look overmatched by pitching. And his intensity is endearing to say the least, right? Like if you're a fan watching Alan Roden running into the wall to catch pre-game fly balls, getting his chin dinged up, like there is something to be said for that kind of gamer, right? So Alan Roden is impressed. This may be biased because I sang his praises last year and I just love the kid, his energy, his enthusiasm. But Stuart Baroa has put together one heck of a spring training. And the skill set of this kid, I think, really could be huge. And he does remind me a little bit of those typical Dominicans that develop late, right? The Anthony Santanders. I mean, we've got a couple kings that, I mean, the level of excellence. Jose Batista is up. Maybe we see Edwin at some point, right? Like these are guys that were both late bloomers out of the Dominican and just were a little slower getting there. Is he another guy like that? I don't know. 26 years old, one of the fastest guys in the system, bar none. This kid was going to lead AAA in stolen bases last year had he not been called up and sat on the bench for the Jays so long. This is a dude, too, where I think the Blue Jays, because he doesn't have that high prospect shine on him, are prepared to let him sit on the bench a little bit. Whether that's good for his development or not, this is how, these kids get a taste of the big leagues. So love what Stuart Burrow is doing this spring. And last but not least, before I turn the ball over to you here, Adam, to run with, Jake Bloss has been really fun to watch. I understand that his numbers look disgusting right now. He had a really good outing his last time on the mound. His stuff is filthy, and he's starting to hit velo that we haven't seen from him. I don't know exactly if this is where he sat because you never really know when it's coming up on the scoreboard how accurate it is. But when I was at the games, he was hitting 98, which again, last year, he was sitting around about 94, 95 regularly. So to see him get up to that higher, close to that triple-digit area, it gives him a little bit of room to play with hitting his spots, which has been the kid's problem. I mean, if you're going to name a 23-year-old pitcher who hasn't had control problems, you're talking elite guys here. So this is not like some wild, crazy problem that the Blue Jays are going to need to try and work out. He's 23 with minimal experience playing pro ball. I think it's just all going to work out in the wash this season. He's probably going to start in AAA as depth for this team behind Yariel Rodriguez and maybe even Ryan Yarborough might get some starts before they actually call him up. But Stuart Baroa, Alan Roden, and Jake Bloss are my guys that I've been really impressed with this spring, all for very different reasons.
Well, you took Jake Bloss away from me.
Apologies. I should have stuck to two.
I thought with the ugly numbers that he'd slip through.
Yes.
Yeah, he's got an ERA of like 9 or something right now, like absurd.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
Whatever. He's probably okay. I don't want to say he's like. How is this question worded? Prospect having a spring that's impressing you or something?
Yes.
So
yes.
I'm going to say
which prospects have you been the most impressed with this spring?
Okay, so I'm going to tweak it to just make it am I most excited about? And then I'm going to include Jake Bloss in that because I do think Bloss is like
a guy to be excited about. I think so too, man.
An upside pitcher. Yeah. Like, he's big. He's got a lot of pitches, four seamer, slider, curve, has a sweeper, a change, and I think he has a sinker that he throws not very often, but it's still there. Like,
Yeah,
like a guy that could throw, what do you say, touching 98,
yeah.
but also has
A
variety,
repertoire, exactly.
at that age is impressive. Um, Now it's just a matter of letting Pete Walker figure out the frequency of which to throw which pitch, and maybe this one needs to get eliminated, or that one
Yeah.
is too hittable, so we don't throw that as often anymore, right? But that's for Pete Walker to figure out on his drunk drives home. My other guy would be, did you say Arelvis?
I didn't.
Okay, I'm going with Arelvis for the same kind of hasn't like necessarily blown me away this spring training,
But
but
he's been good. He has
he's
been
done
good.
enough to like make me feel better about the way the PEDs ended with such a bad taste in my mouth last year.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to say like my optimism for Elvis is completely back, but I am encouraged that he could contribute this year. And I was just, whenever there's like a PED scandal like that for a player like that, who's like, is his best value or his only value his hitting tool? Like he's not a defensive anything.
Mm-hmm.
So for a guy to have a PED scandal, you just go, oh, how much of this was bullshit?
Yeah.
Right? Like the power was so impressive as a kid. Then you go, oh, he's just been cheating, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so there's just such a question mark when that happened of like, okay, are his number, like, we know his numbers are inflated, right? But are they inflated by 70%? Are they inflated by 30%?
5%.
Are
Yeah,
they inflated
exactly.
by 5%, right?
Yeah.
Because, and that's where a lot of, you know, players have described the benefits of like steroids, right? Is that, look, the difference is, yeah, you're talking an extra like 5 to 15 feet on your balls, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's the difference between flying out to the right fielder and putting it over the wall, right? Like it's the
Yeah.
difference between hitting a double to the warning track and hitting another home run, right? Like, so over the course of a season, instead of hitting 40 doubles and 20 home runs, you hit 20 doubles and 40 home runs. Guess which one
Mm-hmm.
looks better, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'm just encouraged that I feel
Yeah,
like the
that
inflation is probably closer to 5-10% than
exactly.
75%.
And I
Like
will say he has not looked overmatched by big league pitching, and that is huge. I mean,
yeah,
obviously, there's still going to be
at
that
that
adjust
age,
and
he's
readjust and little
mhm,
game that baseball plays where
mhm.
the league is, tweaking towards one
Yep.
thing and then they got to retweak. But the fact that he's in there and he's hitting some dingers and he's putting in good at bats, very encouraging.
He's not getting like blown by, right? Like,
Yes.
yeah, no, I don't know. So there's my two. Really don't quite fit the criteria of the question, so I'm sorry, but I hope it still feels like it fits the vibe of the question and that these are prospects I'm looking forward to.
While we're speaking, guys that do not fit the question here, I will say Davis Schneider has been very impressive this spring.
Okay.
He has done everything he's had to do to stay on this team. I think he has the inside track on it at this point of being one of those guys on the 26 man. He's hitting just over 400, I think, right now, and has a dinger. He's showing some power. Love to see it.
So
I
his
know he's not a prospect.
numbers right now, 19 at bats, 7 hits, 1 home run, 368 batting average, but an on base percentage of 556 and an OPS of 1.240. So
And
Yeah,
this
very
is the
good.
thing
It's a
too.
good
I
rebound year.
think
And this is sorry, good.
no, I'm with you. It is very good.
This is the tweak, right? And this is why they say, what is it, 1,500 career at bats before you can judge a guy, right? The first 500, the batter has the edge. The next 500, the pitching adjusts. And then the 500 after that is the readjustment. It's the equilibrium. So, you know,
I don't think we're going to see Davis Schneider play as much as he did last year, but I do think that with David Popkins being so good, or one of the skill sets that he has been touted for, anyways, is keeping bats hot, quote unquote, right?
mhm.
Like keeping guys ready. So I think Davis, with the way that he has shown he has power against right handers, I think that that is something that can play, right? So we'll see how many times Davis is starting, but it does give John Schneider an opportunity to play with the roster mid game. And I think that Davis Schneider being playable is going to be massive. And he's such a fan favorite. Like, how do you not like the kid? He's an underdog through and through. He was never supposed to even be here. Like, that's the truth of this. Like, I remember when we talked to him when he was in Vancouver and he was in the midst of that huge slump. And he was just like, he was really down and out. He was just like, it was the first time he came on the show, and he was just really in that. I mean, I'll quote him from the second time he came on the show, which was like, I wasn't. He's like, I was playing once a week in high A. It was
Yeah.
like the worst time of my career.
Mm-hmm.
But that says something that he's been that low. He's been through the trenches, right? So like,
Mm-hmm.
this isn't it's not like when Vladdy or Bo had their first slump and it was in the majors and they were like, oh my God.
How do we
You
figure it
know, it's
out? Yeah.
like Davis is like, yeah, I've struggled lots of times.
Yeah.
I
Let's
know the
clear the
pathway back
headspace. Let's
on.
break out the Catan board.
Let's,
Let's
yeah,
get to it.
exactly. All right, moving on here. This is from Metal Manic, and he's commenting on our Marcus Stroman talk from MLB Mondays. And he goes,
Right.
what's even more hilarious about the Stroman situation is how much the Yankee fan base dog-piled and shit on him over the offseason. And now they're essentially dependent upon him to be successful. And I agree. That is hilarious and fun.
Yeah. R.I.P. Garrett Cole.
Johnny Eaton also chimes in on Stroman. He says, it's hilarious to me that Stroman, who I never liked and was once so beloved and defended by Jays fans, is now a heel. LOL. Ah, how times have changed. So there you go. I personally still don't dislike Stroman. I think he's just kind of like a funny character that, you don't see a lot of. And Marcus Stroman might be the only athlete in Major League Baseball right now with the Toronto skyline tattooed across his abdomen. So he always loved Toronto.
Yeah, I think he was the first one to buy a City Connect jersey. Um, I feel like Stroman is like understandably dislikable. Rubs a lot of people the wrong way.
Yes.
And I also think that that is good for baseball. I think that's good for the entertainment value of it all. Sports needs villains.
Yes.
Trevor Bauer, I don't know if we're allowed to say his name anymore or not, but he was one of the best villains baseball had for a long time.
I heard
And
rumors, Adam. Speaking of the best villain that the baseball's ever had, I heard rumors that the Yankees are actually talking to Trevor Bauer right now. They are in a real tough spot with their pitching. I
that
don't
would
know
be a
if
disaster for them to get a Cy Young caliber pitcher for league minimum would fucking not be fair for the Yankees.
Well, I don't know if he's Cy Young caliber anymore, but man, Bauer and Stroman on the same team. I don't know. I almost just want to see it. I almost just want to see it.
Yeah, I would say if Bauer joined the Yankees and in time for the season to start, I would assume he is ready to go.
Yeah.
Just the game that he talks on social media, he is all like when the Shohei stuff came out last week and was like, oh, yep, Shohei's dialing down his rehab. You know, Bauer's out there tweeting at the Dodgers like, "Hey, I'm still available."
Yeah.
I just think a guy of that caliber, like performance-wise, would not run his mouth if he wasn't willing to back it up. That's where
I
I'm
don't
at. I
know.
think he's putting in the work. Now, he's not facing the same level of players by pitching in Mexico and Korea and
Yes.
everywhere he can, but I think he's done everything he can to be ready. And I bet you if he pitched for the Yankees this year, he would be a top 10 finalist in Cy Young.
I would take that bet every day. I do not take that. And that's fair. We'll never know
I
because
think
Rob Manfred,
the only thing that makes me think that he wouldn't be like a top 5 finish is that he's missed spring training at this point.
right.
Right? So if he
Well,
signed in February, I'd feel a lot stronger about that bet than him
well,
joining
listen,
the team right now.
I want to say this about Trevor Bauer before we move on. Number one, yeah, he had phenomenal numbers in the Mexican League last year, but also 43-year-old Robinson Cano was hitting 400 in that league. So let's reel it in a little bit here, in my opinion. Secondly, it's never going to happen. Rob Manfred has blackballed that man after he hung cinder blocks off his frickin' hand with spider tack and humiliated the league.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't even about the sexual assault stuff anymore. This is literally Rob Manfred's vendetta, and I just don't believe there's any possible way that someone breaks this shadow ban. I just don't.
I think
mean,
if anybody would, it would be the Yankees.
So we'll see.
All
It's
this
an
to say,
interesting
the
story.
villain that is Marcus Stroman, I think, is good for baseball because the only thing that gets butts in seats and eyes in front of televisions more than rooting for their player
Mm-hmm.
is rooting against another player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Right?
for sure.
So,
Absolutely. All right, going to Twitter. Patreon is done. Thank you to all of you who contribute. Appreciate it. This is from Grogan. He tweeted at us. He goes, at Walk Off Podcast. I can't be the only one who's noticed that every Blue Jay isn't trying to hit singles and doubles at the plate this year. So far, they're all swinging for the fences, and it looks good. And I have to agree with that. I mean, David Popkins was quoted as he likes damage. I mean, to quote Keegan Matheson, I don't really know what that means, but it
I love it.
sounds good. It sounds really good, right? And you know what?
Absolutely.
You look at the spring numbers, and offense is up across the board. We can push it aside and say it's spring training, or we can be hopeful that they're on a new path. That's the dream.
Fingers crossed.
Also from Twitter, this is from Blake Bell. He goes, agree with at Ben Nicholson Smith and Arden Dwelling from this week's At the Letters, who shouted out Scott and Baseball Town. I too attended the Walk Off podcast in Dunedin on Thursday and was duly impressed and told Riley Terada after the panel by how mature Chad Dallas, Alan Roden, and his approach to the game has been. And if you do get a chance to listen to the Baseball Town, the player panels right off the top, the stand-up portion of it is on Patreon for the Patreon folks who want to see the full show, but I cut that out for all the rest of you, so you get right to the player meet. Yeah, but that player panel's right off the top. If you have 40 minutes to watch it, honestly, great insight to this AAA layer of depth that this team has. It is a bunch of 25, 26-year-olds who have developed maybe slower than a lot of the organization wanted, but are right on the fringe right now, and they've got a great mindset. One thing that really stood out to me, Chad Dallas said this. I think I brought this up on MLB Mondays, but he was like, listen, I wasn't a good baseball player last year, and that's okay. And just that sentence, it's so short, it's so sweet, but it just really sums up development and the way you've got to mentally approach it. I just am so impressed with these kids' ability to compartmentalize and to motivate themselves and to not dwell on the negatives, right? So Chad Dallas obviously went through Tommy John surgery. He's kind of neck and neck with Ricky Tiedemann in rehab. They're roommates and they're doing everything together and they're super competitive, and it's a good thing. Even if Chad Dallas is literally doing nothing and just gets a sniff of the big leagues, just gets his cup of coffee, but somehow leads Ricky Tiedemann into the next era of Blue Jays starters. Hell yeah, man. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Hey, question for you.
Yes.
You did stand up at
Yes.
Baseball Town?
Yes, I did.
Were you nervous? Like
No,
like
not.
like 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 a typical stand-up show, you do whatever, 50, 500 people, whatever. It's almost entirely anonymous though. Like the crowd is just strangers. So there's no
Yeah.
pressure, really. They've already paid. If you bomb or somebody's like, I don't think that's funny. That's not my cup of tea. You don't have to see them ever again. So it's like, okay, bye. Whereas this is like, oh, Keegan Matheson might not think I'm funny. Like
Hey, you know
the
what? I
grounds
never thought
crew
it.
might not think I'm funny. And
I never thought of it this way.
I might lose subscribers if my joke sucks.
You know what's really funny? I literally thought of it the other way around. I was like, this show's not even supposed to be funny. I'm like, if
Of
these jokes don't really go over, no big deal. And they actually did go over really well. Like I was
course, you're
actually impressed. Like it
hilarious.
was,
Yeah, of
well,
course.
I just, yeah, I guess it's just dependent. That's so funny. I never even thought of it the
Well,
other way
sorry to
around.
plant
It's
the
like,
seed for next
yeah,
time.
there you go.
I'll
That's
make sure to
right.
text you the day before and be like, no,
Yeah, be like, remember the
remember. Yeah.
All right. Jeremy DM'd us this morning, actually, and he says, holy shit, guys. What do you make of all this Vladdy stuff coming out?
Yeah.
Question mark, question mark, question mark, exclamation mark. Uh, Buster Olney is reporting they were only 50 million apart before negotiations broke off before spring. That's way closer than I expected, especially when Vladdy said no, they weren't close. How should we look at this as fans? Well, Jeremy, number one, thank you. I messaged him right back and was like, thanks for DMing us. So to answer the question, how should we look at this as fans? Honestly, look at it however you want, right? Like, there's no real rule as to how you can look at this. It is a crazy situation. All of the rhetoric that has come out, David Ortiz rumoring that Vladdy is worth 14 years, 585 million, which made people be like, that's a weird number to just throw out as somebody who deserves it. And then two
Oddly
and two started getting,
specific.
yeah, two and two started getting put together, and they're like, that had to have been Vladdy's ass. And then when Vladdy was asked about it, he said, yeah, we weren't even close. And then all of a sudden, yesterday, news started coming out that the Blue Jays were close to 500 million after deferrals and stuff, around 450, I guess was the number. And it was John Heyman, I think, who reported. Yes, John Heyman said Jay's offer to Vlad was for third biggest contract in Major League Baseball history, but contained deferrals and left sizable gap. Which, I mean, Otani's whole salary is deferred.
Mm-hmm.
So Vladdy would have been making as much, if not more, than Otani once you put the 700 million through that inflation equation or whatever the heck they do to get that number.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know how to feel about it, but I definitely am not near as on Vladdy's side as I maybe was, let's say, 2 months ago, 1 month ago, right? Where I was just like, pay the kid. He deserves what pay him his 450 million. That's what I thought, right? I was like,
Mm-hmm.
obviously he wants around 450, give it to him. And now that it's starting to come out that they were prepared to do that, and he wanted close to 600, I don't know. I don't know. And I mean, it is interesting that they say there's only a $50 million gap.
Yeah, that's a kind of a misleading statement, though. Like, I think that's generous to the Blue Jays side
Mm-hmm.
because if there's a 50 million gap, technically, but
But once you put it through that equation,
it's
yeah,
200 million of deferrals, and Vladdy wants whatever his number is, no deferrals. The 50 million gap is bigger than or more significant than just being that close.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like that it feels like this is just going to be a distraction all year long now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know what the path through this season could possibly look like that quiets this distraction. Like, if Vladdy hits well, the distraction narrative is just going to be, oh, Jays are going to regret not closing that $50 million gap. And then if he's not doing well, it's going to be just as bad of a distraction, but it's going to be negative against him. And
Yeah.
if he's not doing well, that doesn't bode well for us making the playoffs. Like, if Vladdy
No,
is
it
not
doesn't.
having a good year,
Oh, no.
we are probably not winning a lot of games.
Yeah.
If we're having a great season, if we're leading the AL East, the talk is going to be like, well, the Jays have to give him the money now.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
can't let him walk now. Which, like, again, so it's just like more of that, like, distraction. And I just don't know how this is going to go well.
I feel the same way, man. And I do wonder if, so here's a little bit of, I don't know, food for thought, I guess. So Andrew Stoughton, good friend of the show, he had a tweet where he pointed out that there is a 4-day window between the end of spring training and opening day for the Blue Jays. And he kind of floated the idea, is in this window there an opportunity for the Blue Jays and Vladdy to sit back down at the negotiation table and finish this? Grounds crew would love to hear your thoughts on this. Is there a window? I know Vladdy has already come out and said that at the start of spring training it's done. But it would clear up a lot of distractions, what Vladdy said he was trying to avoid, if they can pull this off before the beginning of the season. Adam, let's put it out of 100. Let's put it out of 100.
Okay.
What number do you have for that 4-day window to see a contract signed by Vladdy? Is it even possible?
100 being he's signed.
Yes.
0 being how I feel.
Yes. Okay.
I wouldn't even expect them to
sit down at the table.
I don't expect them to have a meeting in those 4 days.
Okay. All right.
I think it is.
Let us know.
I think where we're at now, and this is why, I mean, I talked at length on the Patreon show on Monday about, I never expected a deal this offseason. I did expect him to go to free agency. For the last 3 years, I've kind of felt that way. And that I expected the Jays to just be the top offer at the end of the day. Right? Like when Judge went to free agency and he was courted by the Giants and everybody else, and then still went back to New York. I felt 85% sure that's how this was going to play out. Vlad was going to go to free agency. The number was either going to go up or down from where him and the Jays thought he was worth based on what the market says. Yeah. And then whatever the market says, the Jays would say, okay, fine, we'll give you that. And he'd say, sounds good, I'm sticking around.
Yeah.
But with all of this, it just feels like, and this is why I don't feel like they're going to even have a meeting on those 4 days, is it feels like both sides now are just digging their heels in and are like, we were the ones being fair. You're the one being unreasonable. And he's saying the exact same thing about them. He's saying, I didn't want Juan Soto money. I didn't even want $600 million. I only wanted $599, all guaranteed today. Like, you know, I don't know. I don't think they're going to meet. And now I'm feeling like I don't think he's coming back in November.
Okay.
So.
Going to YouTube. A couple Baseball Town comments here. Meckin001 commented. I'm only reading this because I actually love this compliment. He's like, nice job with the sound. I don't know if it was complete luck, but it worked out really well. Live recordings are hard. I always screw up the sound on these things, and I was so happy to hear this because I really did put a bunch of effort into like trying to place. You know, I had some extra equipment, and even we figured out because there was a bluegrass show going, which you can hear a little bit, but minorly. But there was a bluegrass show going on in their gardens, and so we had taken the monitors, pointed them at the stage, and then put our little speakers right by the speakers, and it worked so well. I was
Nice.
just so happy with myself. Again, folks, we had a big talk right before we even hit record on the public side how I need to YouTube shit just to figure out how to do stuff like turn on my Bluetooth on the new computer I have. So we are dealing with minimal technology here. And I just was very, very
You
happy that
deserve
the
all the
sound.
flowers, Scott. You
Yeah, there
nailed
you
it.
go. So there you
Good
go.
job.
Meccan, thank you. Mantis Toboggan also said amazing show. Wish I could have been there. Thanks, Scott, and all that came out to support. So I will tease this. Baseball Town back up and running all summer long in Toronto at Comedy Bar on Bloor. April 17 is our first show. May 15, June 12, July 10. By the way, July 10 is going to be our 5th-year anniversary show. I haven't even mentioned this to Adam yet, but I'm going to try and convince him to come down for it. We'll see what we can do money-wise, but
Might have a new logo to unveil.
maybe a new logo. We've got
Might have
big
City
plans,
Connect
folks.
podcast jerseys.
Who thought we could have lasted 5 years? Lord knows we didn't. So, to
Oh
all of you
man.
who have been with us from the beginning, thank you. I know I'm basically thanking our fathers here, but and for everyone else who jumped on some way along the trail, really appreciate it. So again, Baseball Town, April 17th, big guests planned for this. I don't want to announce them quite yet here, but yeah, it's going to be a fun time. See, my camera is driving me nuts here with readjusting constantly. But anyways, YouTube, apologies, audio, carry on your way. All right, moving on. Alan Warnock says, who made me love this team? Because we were talking, that was a question on Mailbag last week. Who made you love this team? And he goes, who made me love this team? Fred McGriff and George Bell, as well as so many others when there was loyalty and when we were kings. It was a magical time. Those late 80s and early 90s teams, man, oh man, anyone who was alive during that time and can remember it, just fuzzy, warm memories. So there you go.
Indeed.
Thanks, Alan. All right, going to New Brunswick, Canada guy. He says MLB after lockout will be okay. MLB after the lockout. So he's talking about the CBA coming up in 2026, which was something that we talked about pretty extensively last mailbag. He goes, MLB after lockout will have a salary cap and a floor. No deferrals allowed. 5 years to become a free agent. Arbitration after 2 years. Maximum contract limit of 10 years. Regular and international draft combined. Deadline for free agents to sign like December 15. And that only free agents can sign 1-year deals. No signings or trades allowed over Christmas holidays. Realignment. Top 8 teams in each league after playoffs. Top 8 teams in each league make playoffs. No wild cards. 1 plays 8, and so on, like old NHL format. No buys. So I bring this up not because I actually think that this will all go down, but there are some really interesting things that he's proposing here. And if even half of this stuff goes through, it is going to be a long strike / lockout, and we may lose the entire 2026 season, very similar to how 94 went down the hole. I am not looking forward to it.
No. Yeah, there's a real perfect storm of bad elements coming for this CBA.
Yes. Yes.
A lot of the points he brought up, I mean, I'd love to see if one of them happens, I'd be like, oh wow, that's significant.
Listen,
Like,
the big sticking points here is ownership is not going to want to bend on giving them 5 years to become free agents, right? Giving them that extra year.
yeah.
The other one that stands out to me is maximum contract limit of 10 years. The players are going to push back hard on that.
So
And
are the owners.
So are the owners. And you know what? The regular and international draft like being combined, like the
Yeah.
international free agency becoming a draft and it all being
Hmm.
combined, I think that this is going to be a much, much bigger issue than maybe baseball pundits are letting on right now. I think this is going to be
Yeah.
one of the major sticking points. We'll see how it all plays out. Some of this stuff I really like that he mentioned. I like the no signings or trades allowed during the Christmas holidays because it's going to put a emphasis on them rushing or not rushing, but it'll be a more exciting free agency at the beginning of December because man, it has been brutal the last few years for fans. Like this is all there's everyone's getting signed in January and February, and you need to wait till almost spring training. And even when spring training started this year, I think we mentioned that there were 46% of free agents still available. It's crazy. So I think a little urgency is going to
Do you
go a long ways.
do you do you think then that just like let's play this out. Let's play out the idea of like a December 15th deadline to sign long-term deals for free agency. I think he said after that it's 1 year deals only,
Mm-hmm.
right? Who benefits from that? Like who's pushing for that? Is that the players that say we want these owners to stop dicking us around and have some real urgency? But there's also like an interesting leverage point where you get to December 13th, December 14th, and you're negotiating with Pete Alonso, and you're like, look, man, we'll give you fucking 3 years right now. Or if you wait, you're only getting 1 year for sure. Like
Yeah.
nobody can give you 3 years. Like who does that leverage work better for, you know? So that's where
That's
I
true.
don't know. A lot of those like
Let us
rules, it's
know what
like,
you
okay,
think.
okay, yeah, I can see that being good. I mean, from an entertainment standpoint and the fans' perspective, having a 1 month flurry of like, okay, let's get shit done. Like, let's not drag it out and be like, well, we have to wait for Juan Soto to sign, and then
Yeah.
he's the first domino to fall, so nobody's gonna sign until he gets his thing. So we have to all wait for him to get courted over the next 3-4 weeks. It's like, okay, well, no, you got to start talking to Pete Alonso right now too, and
Yeah.
that might work in the player's best interest. Where Pete Alonso's like, hey, like sign me before you realize you're out on Juan Soto.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I don't know. So I don't know. It'd be interesting. I'd love it from entertainment, but yeah, I don't know.
And I think I like the way you did it too, because there are some like obviously the playoffs is going to be a big concession for the players because that's really adding a lot of games here.
Yeah,
But there's concessions on the ownership side too that he's mentioning. So it's going to be a very messy CBA. I hope I am wrong. My God, if there's one thing that I'm wrong about, it is I would love it to be the CBA being a big sticking point, but
man.
I worry.
I just,
Anyways,
I
go
just,
ahead.
I just don't want to see a lockout that results in almost the same CBA on the other side,
Yes,
right? Like, if
yes,
we're going to be losing baseball, let's get whatever the salary cap floor
yeah.
implemented, the international draft stuff, sort of like let's get the stuff
Let's figure
dealt
out a way
with,
to make the small market teams relevant. Is
right?
basically what this is all going to
Let's
be about, and
sure.
it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
But they're all going to come in with their big drastic claims. Well, we want this. We want expanded playoffs, and well, we want these assurances and these protections. And then they always meet fucking 4% off of where they started, anyways. So
Yeah,
it's just brutal.
yeah, yeah. Last comment of the mailbag here is from MBAC512, and he goes, "LOL, attention seeking a bit?" Question mark. Right behind home plate. It zoomed in on him a few times. So my guess is he's talking about when Taylor and I were in Bradenton. So Bradenton is where the Pirates play. We watched the Jays and the Pirates. It was so great. Honestly, we got there. So we were looking at seats the night before, and it was like 125 American a ticket to sit behind home plate. And we were like, well, we'll just get the $25 general
Mhm.
admission outfield seats and,
Yeah.
go have some beers and have some fun. Then we woke up and it was pouring rain, and the game wound up getting pushed an hour. And by the time we got there, 30 minutes before 1 o'clock, when the game was supposed to start, tickets behind home plate were $18. So we were like, hell yeah! So we bought the tickets, and then it didn't get rained out.
Yeah.
And so we were literally right behind home plate. I know we got on TV quite a bit. I know people even, my favorite thing that's ever happened to me at a game happened where like it was the ninth inning, 1 out, runner on first. The Jays are down by 1, and the whole stadium went dead silent. And I yelled out, "Let's go Blue Jays!" And then booze rained down, and it made me laugh so hard. And
Amazing.
Ernie Clement Enjoyer on Twitter actually caught it, like because we were so like the stadium had emptied out, and like we were
Yeah.
like the only ones. He actually caught it on the broadcast and sent it to me. Like he tweeted it out, and it
Oh,
was just
that's
like,
great.
honestly, it made me laugh so hard. I wish I had the ability to just throw the clip up right here. I mean, I do if I was more tech savvy, but anyways, it was very amusing to me how
Hmm.
badly we got booed after that Let's Go Blue Jays.
Nice.
All right. Well, that is Mailbag. Thank you to all of you. Really appreciate it. Again, Adam and I on the road tomorrow. Regina, Moose Jaw Friday, Saskatoon on Saturday, Lethbridge Friday, Saturday of next week, and Edmonton on Sunday, March 23rd at Sick Brewing. The ticket links are going to be in the comments section. Would love to see any of you out there. If you do come out, let us know you're a walk-off listener. I'll grab you a pint and we'll talk some baseball. I look forward to it. All right, everybody. Take care of yourselves.
Cheers.
Cheers.